on that month's edition of WCW Magazine.
And we're here, baby. Check it out. WCW Magazine from September 1996, issue 19. The Outsiders, my boys, my homies, on the cover of WCW Magazine for September of 1996. Finally, the magazine is mentioning the New World Order. Inside cover, DDP. And you know why he's in such a good mood? You know why? Because he gets to have hot sex with Kimberly Page every night. Look how happy he looks. No wonder. You'd be stoked. You would be able to believe it every time it happens anyway. Let's move forward here. The editor's note, editor of the magazine, Colin Bowman, is even in character as well, talking about his disgust of Hulk Hogan and his actions at Bash of the Beach. Nerd? Like, nerd? What's wrong with you? We know it's not real. WCW update. We have a little piece on the Rock and Roll Express. And of course some character crap with DDP and a blurb about Sherry Martel. Wow. You know, that is some compelling shit here in September of 1996. As I have to try and fill 20 seconds worth of talking with each page. High Voltage got a piece here, and interesting to note that Robbie Rage was known as Ruckus at the time, and Kenny Chaos was just known as Chaos. So I thought that was interesting. And Scotty Riggs takes exception, to Medusa making fun of him last month for not being able to ride a motorcycle properly. And they certainly do get the dirt. You got to call the hotline on 1-900-909-9900. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but you got to get your parents' permission before calling because it's $1.49 per minute, and Mean Gene is pocketing all the money. Hotline Buzz here, baby. Hotline Buzz with the rude-headed Muck Madden in the top corner there. Look at that ghastly mug. My God. Mark bitches and moans about Hulk Hogan in character, like Colin Bowman, which is always kind of funny, don't you think? These guys pretending to be mad about something that's making the company shitloads of money. Now we've got pages 8 to 15 talking about Bash at the Beach 1996. And what went down, baby, at Bash at the Beach 96. We know Ray and Psychosis had a hell of a barn fucking burner. And then DDP and Duggan actually had a very underrated match. I don't care what Dave Meltzer has to say. And then the Nasty Boys and Public Enemy. Dude, from memory, that was so much fun. It's just a mess. A fun mess. Disco Inferno. You know, as far as I'm concerned, he shuts the critics up. Especially those guys from the Deadlock podcast who said he can't wrestle. Obviously, you haven't seen enough of his shit. You have a podcast out there and you're going to take the time to say someone can't wrestle? Grow up, man. Honestly, I hate that shit so much. Disco and Malenko had a hell of a fucking match and he showed that he can keep up with it. Anyway, you know, people get their high horse so much about in-ring wrestling and everyone's technical ability and work rate. Shut up, nerd! Anyway, we got Mongo here. Along with Flair, Wrestling Conan. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, that's that Mongo Joe Gomez absolute debacle of a match. Fuck me. It was horrible. Why would you put Mongo against Joe Gomez? Nothing against Joe Gomez, but he's not exactly the best wrestler that you can put a new guy like Steve Mongo McMichael, who, you know, wrestles like he's a dog in the back of the family van trying to stand up. He's that uncoordinated. Anyway, you know, we see more highlights. The main event of the evening with the Outsiders beating the living fuck out of Savage and Sting. And then, of course, Hogan, my fucking boy, the Hulkster, hitting the big fucking leg. Hitting the big fucking leg on Savage and turning his back on the fans, on everyone. Anyway, moving forward, we were away from Bash at the Beach. Mean Gene Oakland, celebrating 25 fucking years in the business, and he's actually not under contract by this point in 1996, which is amusing nonetheless. I really liked reading that Gene studied radio and was a DJ and program director in Minnesota before he got into the wrestling business. At this stage, Gene thought he would only do this for a couple more years, maybe a little more, and then cut back, which is actually what fucking happened. And I guess it helped that WCW went out of business. But anyway, I thought, they have this part where people start, giving their thoughts on Gene Okerlund and, his friends, his colleagues, etc., etc. They give some thoughts on Gene. And I thought Bobby Heenan was really funny. And he said, everyone always says I never say anything nice about Gene. But this time I'm changing that. His mother is uglier than him, but he's got more hair. Like, he just can't be nice. Anyway, speaking of not so nice, Chris Benoit. We all know what becomes of Chris Benoit, unfortunately. But look, in this interview, some poignant things are mentioned by Chris, like the physical and mental punishment, and how it makes it the most demanding sport in the world. And he also has no regrets about being a wrestler whatsoever. Well, Chris. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't need to go there, but I think eventually you kind of do regret it a bit. But yeah, he also wrote like some of the most shit answers you could think of. Like, his toughest opponent was is his next opponent, and his greatest match today is all of his matches. And I'm like, dude, that is exactly like when people ask your favorite band and you say you like everything, you fucking dickhead. So boring. Anyway, Bobby is gloating on how he's said Hogan was scum since 1984, and finally 12 years later he's proven right. I also laughed at Bobby throwing Gene under the bus with the nWBro, and Bobby saying that he has no issue with them. And saying that Gene called Scott Hall a toothpick chomping burrito. And then there's a typo. They called Kevin Nash Kevin Hall. He rants some more on the next page, although I didn't like him calling Kimberly the booty bimbo. Look, Regal here on this page, page 24, I believe. Just an in-character article. Who gives a shit? So boring. Where do they get this stuff? That's the quote that they have for WCW Magazine. That's the line that they use. And I think it's shit. Where do they get this stuff? I don't know. They write it down, moron. And bro, sick, man. I want to fucking get the VHS of that shit. 1998 each. Fuck. Have you seen them on YouTube? Like a VHS tape now of a WCW pay-per-view from back then? Mate, fucking expensive as fuck. Kick, wrestle, and roll with Medusa. I'll roll with Medusa. Any day, twice on Sunday. More character crap, though. She mentions being Jason Hervey's date for an opening of Rainforest Cafe at Disney Village. Jason, you are punching above your weight there, mate. And of course, we have a little article here on number 76, Steve Mongo McMichael. I didn't really read this article because, I guess I wasn't too interested, but, he's talking about football and all that, and I don't really know much about it. But look, he talks about Deborah and, how all of her rings cost $30,000. Her gowns are $5,000. I don't know. Sounds a bunch of bullshit there, mate. I think it's a bit too pricey. But anyway, Arriba! Wow, sign of the times, bro. Oh, get it? He's Mexican. Rey Mysterio, like, we should start that article because we're talking about Mexican wrestlers. We'll start the article with fucking something Speedy Gonzalez says. You know the little mouse? He's like a Mexican mouse in the cartoon, like a Looney Tune. Yeah, we're aware, dickhead. Anyway, they talk about the cruiserweights, the luchadors, in WCW. And of course, the worst wrestler in WCW until Virgil joins and becomes Vincent, Conan. Anyway, the Outsiders. They have their article here, and Eric Bischoff is talking shit about them. You know, Scott Hall's been interviewed for this as well, and you know, he's got a little bit to say, but again, it's fucking shit in character. You know, I'm not sitting there reading somewhat, like, I can just watch the show and hear what they have to say, but I guess this was again about the immersion of the experience of being a wrestling fan in 1996, etc. You'd actually get the fucking magazine and read the whole thing, and you'd be into it. Because you were so into wrestling at that stage, it didn't matter that it was in character stuff. You wanted as much as you could possibly get. You wanted to squeeze as much out of the sponge of wrestling as you could. And any sort of media toward it, any sort of media, you would fucking eat up with a spoon! Do you hear me? Another in-character interview with Big Bubba. And as me and Big Kev from the podcast said, we do believe that Big Bubba is underrated. Another in-character interview. Who cares, bro? I love Harlem Heat. I fucking love him. I fucking love him, man. But I don't care about in-character interviews. I've had enough to hear. It's unbelievable. Anyway, Patriot Games. Jim Duggan interviewed here, talking about his illustrious career in professional wrestling. And I had no idea that he was nearly in the NFL, but he ended up being on the injury reserve list because he fucked his knee up. Squire Dave Taylor, yes. He's got a little interview here. We find out about his family's history in wrestling. His grandfather, Joe Taylor, was fourth in the Olympics in 1932. And I believe his father, Eric Taylor, was also quite the professional wrestler. He was quite the man's man. And they tell some stories there. Like, there's stories of a bunch of gypsies trying to, like, rob them, and then they find out that it's Eric Taylor who's like driving the car, and then they all ran off. Das Wunderkind Alex Fate! Hello! It heißt Alex! It's Alex right here, getting some shit in. Look at him. Look at him. Chicks would be all over that, wouldn't they? I mean, he better worry about what kind of club he walks into, because if he walks into a gay club, the men will be frothing. Anyway, Colonel Robert Parker, Dusty Rhodes, Larry Zbyszko, Jimmy Hart, I think Dusty's the only one who says something nice about Alex here. But you know what? Who knows if these four actually sat down and wrote a fucking paragraph about Alex Wright. But, you know, anyway, moving forward. WCW in New York, huh? How you fucking doing, huh? WCW in New York. I'm pretty sure this was the show where Conan spat the dummy at the ECW fans in attendance who were heckling him. And Kevin Sullivan got on the mic and praised ECW, and the fans stopped heckling. From what I remember, the fans were calling Conan a sellout or something like that. I hate that shit. Like, bro, he wants to get paid, motherfucker. You know, and you pay to go see him in fucking New York, huh? Fucking New York. I mean, look, they are now entering the New York market as much as they can because they got Hogan, they got Nash, they got Hall, they got Duggan, they got Savage. They've got all of these WWF guys, and as we know, WWF, their home is fucking New York, huh? You don't have to be a macho mess of muscle to pick up one of these, yeah. Just enter the Slim Jim Halloween Havoc Snap to Win sweepstakes, bro. It sounded like a fucking sick sweepstakes, dude. They fucking, like, you can win that truck. That truck was on the line. You can also win a big screen TV. You could get flown out to fucking go to the pay-per-view and shit. And gonna be serving some hard time with Big Bubba. right there as we get to the end here of the September 1996 edition of WCW Magazine. I don't know why there's a picture of Sting there. I think that was a mix-up. That's probably in the next edition of the magazine. For some reason, that's got muddled up in there. But I want to thank Bryan from WCWWorldwide.com for these scans here of the September issue of WCW Magazine from 1996. I'm Karlifornia, nWBro's podcast, and we will see you down the road.